Greetings, and welcome back to the MCOC Encyclopedia. Today, we will be covering the god of the Battle Realm himself, Galan, the buff-gaining, unstoppable, regenerating, stun-immune, and burst damage-dealing Cosmic Titan. We will be breaking down all his abilities and the best ways to defeat him. For bespoke advice from me, or if you just want to have a chat, feel free to join the Discord, linked down below. Let's jump in. To start with, Galan has an impressive set of control immunities. These include Fate Seal and Nullify, as well as Power Drain, Burn, Lock, and Special Lock. Notably though, we are missing Stagger and Power Steal, so this isn't quite the full set. It is also important to note that Stagger does technically let Galan gain the buff, and then instantly removes it. This will be important later on. Galan has his Solar Intensity, and these are a bit weird. When defending, Galan starts with 2, but if he's defending the final boss node of a quest, he gains the maximum of 3. Supposedly, each of these gives Galan's buffs 20% potency, but this isn't shown anywhere on screen. Galan is meant to receive passives when the fight starts, but it's unknown if these are triggering. The text pops up, but no passives do. What is known is that if Galan has all 3 solar intensities, then his special attacks gain the True Sense buff, allowing him to bypass miss and auto-block. This is mostly an offensive thing, but it is important to note if you find him on a boss node. The fact that this True Sense is a buff and not a passive is also important, as we will explore later on. If Galan does manage to hit you, he gains indefinite resistance buffs. He gains 2 energy resistance from his first medium, and 1 physical resistance buff from his light attacks and from his second medium. Both of these cap out at 20. They aren't hugely potent, though, at 20 they do add up, and they are vitally important for Galan on offense. On defense, though, they're just something to watch out for. Don't get hit, no issues. Here comes the important bit. Whenever Galan gains a buff, any buff from any source, he gains 10 planetary mass. This is why the staggers aren't as effective as we would like, as even staggered buffs are counted towards this, and why his other abilities providing him buffs are important. If you gain an armor up effect, so buff or passive, he gains 50 mass. This, however, is one more we can add to our list of glitchy abilities. When Galan is on defense, this will trigger against starting armor up buffs. You can see here, and this is the first frame of the fight, that Galan instantly goes to 270 mass. 5 sets of 50 from the armors, and 2 sets of 10 from the regen and the unstoppable. I'll cover those 2 in a moment. But when I use them on offense, this doesn't happen. On offense, when Galan gains 100 or more mass, he can land a heavy attack to trigger the Harvest. However, on defense, the Harvest triggers itself once Galan has 100 or more mass. No need to worry about the heavy. The Harvest lasts for 14 seconds, and while it is active, Galan gains a relatively small regeneration, and also goes unstoppable. Whilst the Harvest is active, Galan also cannot gain power if he has more than 1 bar of power. Once the Harvest ends, you will take an unavoidable burst of direct damage proportional to the amount of mass consumed. This is direct damage, so we have basically no way of mitigating this or reducing it. We do have one option, but I'll go into that later. It also scales with base attack only, so no need to worry about those plus 100% attack nodes, boosts don't change it, etc. And when Galan is on defense, the damage is actually halved. However, this will still take a good bite out of your health, and if you let it stack up, there's a pretty good chance that it is an insta-KO. Keep watching to find out how we deal with all of this. Galan's specials can potentially be lethal, and there are some things we really have to pay attention to. Firstly, if Galan throws his specials whilst the Harvest is active, it will not only be fully unblockable, but the last hit of the special attack will deal the burst damage from the Harvest. They will also gain additional effects, so it's best not to get hit. The special one gives Galan 4 8% fury buffs for a total of 32%. However, 4 buffs means 40 mass, and this is almost more important. If thrown when the harvest is active, Galan will also consume any and all of his resistance buffs and convert each of them into 5 additional mass. So at the maximum 40 resistance buffs, this is 200 extra mass and a lot more damage. The special 2 give Galan 8 intensify buffs, each increasing the potency of new buffs by 5%. This is fairly minimal, but again, 8 buffs, 80 mass, and we only need 100 before the harvest triggers. The final 3 beam hits also inflict fairly potent and quite long incinerates. If the harvest is activated, each beam, however, inflicts 3 incinerates for a total of 9. Interesting to note, the special 2 gives twice as much mass as the special 1. Therefore, there is no advantage to baiting either special in terms of just managing the planetary mass. The special 3 instantly gives 200 mass and automatically triggers the harvest. If thrown when the harvest is already active, the duration of the harvest is refreshed, and Galan is allowed to gain power once again. But as always, special 3s are best avoided. Galan's signature ability can make him even more of a pain on defense. The first thing to note is that whilst the harvest is active, Galan becomes fully stun immune, any source. This can suddenly make the fight much more difficult, as you don't really have a way of stopping Galan from gaining ground. He's unstoppable and stun immune, so what can you do? Also, if Galan gains mass whilst the harvest is active, he will instantly inflict a relatively small amount of direct damage. The secondary effect is that if Galan prevents a power drain, burn, lock, or special lock against a non-mystic champion, he will gain between 1 and 3 of his resistance buffs, depending on the sig level. More buffs, more mass, more problems. Galan does have a pre-fight ability, but as he's on defense, this is irrelevant. Galan's primary issues come from his harvest. This is caused by his planetary mass, which he gains from gaining buffs. We can't really stop the harvest from triggering, as it does so automatically, so let's have a look at the mass and the buffs. As I said at the start, staggering Galan's buffs isn't good enough, and he will still gain planetary mass. But neutralize won't. This prevents the buffs from ever triggering, so no mass is gained. Just make sure your neutralize is up when Galan is throwing a special attack, and he will never gain any mass. Rintra, Tigra, and Wiccan are excellent options because of this. Tigra in particular is excellent versus Galan, as his special 1 is very easy for her to punish. Our other options come from the fact that Galan will lose 30 mass when you knock him down using a special attack per bar of power you spend. Him losing 30 mass, though, is less than the 40 mass he gains from the special 1 and 80 from the special 2, meaning you will need some form of external power gain, or he will use more specials than you and eventually trigger the harvest. If you know the fight isn't going to last very long, then any champion can work here, and it will just take him much longer to ramp up, but champions with power gain are best. Investing in the Mystic Dispersion Mastery and using a Mystic champion with stagger can be a great option, as is anyone with power gain buffs. If we stagger his buffs when he gains them, yes, he gains mass, but Mystic Dispersion gives us a good load of power to work with, so we can sort of ping-pong backwards and forwards. For power gaining champions, think Hyperion or Vision Arcus, and for passive power gain champions, think Sorcerer Supreme, Symbiote Supreme, Havoc, etc. Our final option, that is the only option I'm aware of that can actually mitigate Galan's red damage, is Future Ant-Man. His signature ability allows him to cap damage from any source, apart from special 3s, to 10% of his max health, and then he starts to heal some of that damage back, depending on his sig. This includes the red damage from the harvest. You will still have to deal with Galan's unstoppable, stun immunity, regen, and so on, but the damage from the harvest will be reduced. So, Galan. Gaining a buff from any source will give 10 planetary mass. If you gain an armor up effect, he will gain 50 mass. He will gain 40 mass from his buffs on his special 1, 80 mass from the special 2, and 200 mass from the special 3. At 100 or more mass, Galan will automatically trigger the Harvest. This makes him regenerate and go unstoppable, and if awakened, he will also be stun immune. At the end of the Harvest, you will take a burst of direct damage proportional to the amount of mass Galan had. Specials triggered during the Harvest are unblockable. The last hit will deal the burst damage from the Harvest, and they also gain additional effects. The best way to deal with Galan is to prevent the Harvest from triggering. Preventing his buffs from triggering via Neutralize will give him no mass, though instantly removing them via Stagger will give him mass. Knocking Galan down with a special attack will remove 30 mass per bar of power you spend. Power gaining champions have an advantage here. Keep Galan under 100 mass and you have nothing to worry about. I hope this helps you against your future Galans, and do let me know how your fights are going now. I'm currently working on 6.1.4 to continue the Act 6 run through, and I will put up another poll so you can vote on the next champion you would like to see, so look out for that. I also now have a Discord server where you can vote on those champions as well. Thank you, and I will see you next time.